Hey guys, what's up? This is another comic review, and we're going to be talking about Kang, Only Myself Left to Conquer. I'm not going to say Kang the Conqueror, because that's a long-ass sentence. So, Kang, Only Myself Left to Conquer. So, this story is written by Jackson Lansing, who I've never... This is like the first time I've ever read anything. Oh yeah, he has a co-writer of Colin Kelly, artwork by Carlos Magno. Now, Carlos Magno I have heard of, and I do have his work, and I think he's a very cool artist. I really like his work. He did a RoboCop comic for Boom. He did the awesome Kong Planet of the Apes crossover artwork in there, and yeah. Like, I was looking at his artwork, and the whole time I was thinking to myself, I know this guy. Like, I feel like I know this guy, and I looked, it was like Carlos Magno. I was like, oh, that guy. So, let's get into it. So, this story, Kang, is part of the, when Marvel wants to really push something in the MCU, they really start to really push, like, miniseries or have the characters show up in, like, events or something. And Kang is no different. Kang is one of the best, probably the next villain face of the MCU. Which makes sense because Kang the Conqueror is a classic Avengers villain. Now, this story basically takes place as like is a 5-part miniseries that essentially what it is that Kang is visited, a young Nathaniel Richards is visited by Kang, and he takes him to 1 year before the extinction of the dinosaurs occurs, and wants to train him. Kang wants to train Nathaniel Richards to basically train him and teach him about all the failures he had so he can change history, which makes a lot of sense when you think about it. Like, if I could turn back time, if I could find a way, I would probably talk to my younger self and be like, okay, here's what you need to do to not do that. And I'm surprised Kang doesn't do that enough. Like, he'll go back in time and talk to a previous version of himself. It's like, okay, that thing you did, you can't do it. You got to do it again. You got to do it over again. Or at least warn them of, like, don't do this or do that. And in here, young Nathaniel Richards meets a version of young Ravonna in time. And you're thinking, well, wait a minute. Ravonna was from the future, so why is she here? Well, reason being is that Ravonna is the kind of the focal point of the time of this story, because Ravonna is splintered throughout time. Like, Ravonna, multiple variants of Ravonna. Sorry about that. So, like I was saying, Ravonna has basically been splintered throughout time, and like variants of her exist throughout Kang's timeline. And ignore the background noise. I don't know if the mic's going to pick that up. But essentially, Kang forbids his younger self from falling in love, and what he does is that Nathaniel says, "I'm never going to become Kang," and goes off into the future to run from his future self and never become Kang and find Ravonna and be in love. You can probably guess where this is going. This is a classic time loop story. This is literally one of those time loop stories. And yeah. It's I feel like that's kind of the thing with time travel comics, is that they the first thing they go for is like, oh, it's a time loop. He's looping himself through time. Yeah. It's because, we do get Kang in here, because, it is Nathaniel Richards, and Kang does encounter, like, Rama Tut, who we haven't seen in a long time, and Ravonna. They also push Moon Knight in here, because Ravonna in the Egyptian times is a herald of Moon Knight. Which is kind of like, it's kind of building, because it's kind of funny, because we did have Kang and Moon Knight cross paths in a one-shot done by Colin Bunn. I thought that was kind of funny that, we're kind of making Kang and we're kind of crossing paths with Kang and Moon Knight again. But in here, Moon Knight is, in this timeline, Ravonna. A version of Ravonna is Moon Knight, and I really dig her costume. It's very much like Khonshu. I really dug that. And yeah, we also have what also makes a logical sense is that Rama Tut in this timeline is at war with Apocalypse, because of course they would be. Like, it would, like, I'm surprised that the first time we've ever talked about, like, yeah, Kang and Apocalypse were at war in ancient Egypt, because that makes so much sense, because, yeah, they existed around the same time period, so it would stand to reason that these two probably warred it out for control over Egypt and the early world. But yeah, we see Nathaniel become, like, the Scarlet Centurion, he becomes Rama, he becomes Kang. The weird thing, though, is that they don't do a lot with Immortus in here. Oh yeah, they mention Immortus a lot in this comic. They really do mention Immortus very much in this comic, but like he's kind of a footnote, which I think is kind of weird because Immortus is one of the many timelines, many time variants of Kang, and he's kind of an important one. So I'm surprised they didn't do they mention him and they show him a few times, but he's not like an important character at all in this comic. Which you would think about a comic about Kang becoming all of his variants would kind of include Immortus, but we don't really get a lot of Immortus in here. There's really good action in here, and it really does kind of focus on Kang and Ravana throughout the timelines. And yeah, it's a pretty fun comic. It's a very fascinating story. But again, it is very much like the classic time loop book. Like, you already figure it out, like the end of the first issue, you're like, oh, we're doing a time loop story. Okay, I know what we're doing here. Yeah. If you are a Kang fan, I will say pick this up. There's some great writing in here. Kang is a very tragic figure in here, and they do have some cool stuff. Like, again, whoever thought we'd ever get to see Kang versus Apocalypse? I think this is the first comic that's ever had Kang versus Apocalypse. We also get Kang and Doom, Kang versus Doom, which they do kind of reference the Christopher Cantwell Doctor Doom comic, which is also pretty fucking awesome. This is if you are either a diehard fan of Kang, Jason Voorhees 2011, or you are looking for stuff to get into for Quantum Mania, and we're curious about Kang after the first season of Loki. Yeah, check out Kang the Conqueror, Only Myself Left to Conquer. This isn't very continuity heavy, which is something to say because this is a time travel book. So yeah, all you need to know, Kang, he's a bad guy. And yeah, this is actually we do talk about Iron Lad, we talk about all of those. So this is kind of like a Kang crash course in a way. So yeah, if you are looking for more Kang stuff, here you go. And it's kind of funny that we're getting more stuff with Kang, because for the longest time, it has felt like Kang the Conqueror has been kind of sidelined, hasn't he? It's only, because of the MCU, but it's kind of nice to have a classic Avengers villain back, and probably one of their biggest villains next to Ultron. So yeah, it's kind of nice to see him back. Anyway, so you guys tell me in the comments below, what did you guys think of this comic? If you've read it, just did you guys like it, hate it? Comment below, let me know. And once again, I'm Mr. Multiverse. I'll see you next time in the Multiverse.